All right, today we're going to talk about someone, well, someone truly remarkable. And chances are you've probably never even heard her name. But her story? It's one of the most astonishing I've ever come across. We're talking about a woman named Martha Root. And right away, her life hits you with this massive paradox. I mean, how does a frail, middle-aged woman with basically no money to her name become one of the most influential spiritual teachers of the entire 20th century? How does that even happen? Well, that's exactly the story we're going to unpack today. Just look at this. The contrast it's just staggering, right? On one side of the ledger, you've got her challenges: frail health, constantly sick, no personal wealth. She was literally funding her trips by writing newspaper articles, always traveling third class. She dressed so simply that people would sometimes give her clothes just out of pity. But then you look at the other side, the achievements. She circled the globe 4 times, taught on every single continent, spoke at more than 400 universities, advised royalty and presidents. I mean, how do you even square that? It's this huge disconnect. So what on earth was driving her? Okay, so to really get Martha Root, you have to understand one thing. Her motivation? It wasn't fame, it wasn't fortune. Not even close. It was this deep, profound spiritual conviction. She saw her entire life's work, everything she did, as a direct answer to a higher calling. And this was the catalyst, this quote you see here. It's from Abdul-Baha, who was the head of the Bahá'í Faith at the time. He wrote these letters, later called the Tablets of the Divine Plan, where he basically put out this passionate plea. He desperately wanted the teachings about unity and peace to spread all over the world, but he knew he couldn't do it himself. So really, it was a call for volunteers, a call for anyone to pick up the torch and carry this message to every corner of the globe. And this is the crucial part. When those letters finally made their way out to the world after World War I, who was the first person to stand up, the very first one in the entire global community to say, "I'll do it"? It was Martha Root. And she didn't just talk about it. In 1919, she packed her bags, set off for South America, and kicked off 20 years of what was pretty much nonstop travel. Okay, so having a mission is one thing, right? But actually pulling it off, that's a whole different ballgame. And Martha, well, she developed this unique and frankly incredibly effective toolkit that let her open doors that would have been slammed shut for almost anyone else. See, she wasn't just some amateur with a big heart. She was a pro. For starters, she was an accomplished journalist. So wherever she went, she'd get articles published. This did 2 things. It funded her travels, and it spread the word before she even got there. Smart, right? She was also a fearless public speaker. She actually trained as a kid by giving dramatic lectures on Shakespeare. And get this, she was an Esperantist, so she used that universal language to connect with all sorts of people. Add to that being a master networker, and top it all off with this unwavering determination that just would not take no for an answer. Let me give you a perfect example. On her very first big trip, sailing to South America, you can see her whole method in action. She doesn't just sit around waiting to get to her destination. No, she looks at the ship and thinks, "Hey, captive audience." So she walks right up to the captain and asks if she can give a talk about the Bahá'í Faith. And the captain? He loved the idea. They put up posters, and by the end of that 2-week voyage, she'd spoken to pretty much everyone on board. It was so simple, so direct, and just incredibly bold. But if you really want to understand her determination, nothing, and I mean nothing, showcases it like this story. Her friends in Buenos Aires were literally begging her not to cross the Andes Mountains in the middle of winter. The journey was just so dangerous. We're talking freezing cold, a tiny little trail thousands of feet up in the air, the kind of place that gives you serious altitude sickness. The only way to even get across was on a mule, and she did it anyway. And you have to ask, why? The answer is so simple, because there were people on the other side who hadn't heard the message yet. That's the kind of conviction we're talking about here. And it's that exact same conviction, that same unstoppable drive, that led to what many people called the crowning achievement of her entire life. Seriously, this next part feels like it was ripped straight out of a movie script. It's the story of how this humble, simply dressed woman from Pennsylvania walked her message right into the halls of European royalty. The way this all went down is just extraordinary. So it's January 1926. Martha is in Romania. She tries to get an official audience with Queen Marie, and she's flatly refused. Door slammed in her face. Now, most of us, we'd probably give up right there.
but not Martha. She just sends a copy of a book about the faith straight to the palace with a little note. And what happens? The very next day, a letter arrives from the palace summoning her. Turns out the queen had stayed up until 3 a.m. reading the entire book and was absolutely captivated.
Just try to picture this scene. These are the very first words Queen Marie says to her. One day, you're getting shut down by palace officials. The very next, a reigning queen is looking you in the eye and telling you that this message you're carrying is the solution for the world's problems. I mean, wow. The connection between them was instant and it was powerful. And the queen, she didn't just keep this new belief to herself. Not at all. She started writing these articles for major newspapers in North America, publicly endorsing the teachings and telling millions of readers, hey, you should really check this out. And that one single act, which was all started by Martha's simple, audacious move of sending a book, it amplified her work on a scale she could never, ever have managed on her own. So when we look back, what's the lasting impact of this just incredible life? When you really step back and try to take in the sheer scale of what she accomplished, it's almost hard to wrap your head around.
4. Just let that number sink in. 4 times she circled the entire planet. And we're not talking first-class flights with a comfy itinerary. This was on a shoestring budget, often while she was sick, traveling for one reason, and one reason only, to spread a message she believed in with her whole heart.
Her incredible journey finally came to an end in 1939. She was gravely ill, trying to make her way back from the other side of the world. And even then, she was hoping to go help with teaching efforts in Latin America, right back where it all started. But her health just gave out, and she passed away in Honolulu. And as Shoghi Effendi, who was the head of the faith then, pointed out, what a symbolic spot for her to rest, right there between the East and the West, the two worlds where she had worked so hard. After she passed, of course, tributes just poured in, but the most significant ones came from Shoghi Effendi. He called her the archetype, basically the perfect model, the gold standard for what a traveling Baha'i teacher should be. He was setting her up as the example for everyone who would ever come after her. And then he made this absolutely definitive statement. He declared her the foremost hand raised up in the faith's entire first century since the passing of Abdu'l-Baha. Now, you have to understand, this wasn't just some nice praise. This was an official title, a designation that cemented her status as one of the most important, most consequential figures in the faith's modern history, period. And that brings us right back to where we started, with a question. Because a story like Martha Root's, it just forces you to rethink what's even possible, doesn't it? It challenges everything we think we know about influence, about power, about what you need to make a difference. Her life seems to suggest that the true measure of a person isn't about what you have. It's about the power of your conviction and what you're willing to do for what you truly believe in. What a remarkable legacy to think about.